Public board, start with the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, Michelle.
Jeremy McCart,
Here.
Bernie Paprad,
Here.
Travis Dunlap,
Present.
Paul Migalorni.
Here.
Aaron Addick,
Here.
Roseanne Bozak, and Angela Scott are absent.
Approval of minutes, March 6th, 2023.
Motion. Accept. Meeting minutes from March 6th.
I'll second.
Discussion. Roll call, Michelle.
Bernie Paprad,
Yes.
Travis Dunlap,
Yes.
Nicole Migalorni,
Yes.
Aaron Addick,
Yes.
Jeremy McCart.
Yes. Communication bills and expenditure, town code updates, any? Yep. Board of officers, committee and staff. Anything?
Nothing. Nothing beyond this one.
Aaron, anything? No. Awesome. Moving on. Okay, old business, new business, review of bonds, maintenance guarantees, letters of credit. Seems like that was really good, but I don't think we have it.
No, and I included April's as well.
So we currently don't have anything that has an expiration set. Next thing under new business is conditional certificate of occupancy process, so. Jane brought it up to me that there was kind of an issue with one of the homeowners in town that I either didn't know the process or superseded the process. Basically, he came in and wanted to get a conditional certificate of occupancy. And he went down to the building department, did what he thought he had to do, then he came up here and he was trying to basically just give her a check to get it, and fortunately, like a personal check isn't like that in that aspect. It's gonna be, I think, a letter of credit or a cashier's check or a bond. So he left and then didn't come back, and then came back like 6 weeks later saying he wants a certificate of occupancy. So I guess the question came up, is there anything that we need to look over through this process? Because what's to say this gentleman just didn't move into his house and do whatever he wanted to do, and like who's seeing any of that? I think a lot of it, I tried to explain that I think a lot of that process, the issue was by the lack of building commissioner during that time. And then I kind of feel like most of that's on him. But Michelle started looking at the code, and I think he probably has some stuff highlighted that I think there's a couple of questions. It's just a matter of whether how in depth and what we want to do about it. I think the process, that's something we're all gonna have to look at and see if you guys have something you want to change. But there is, Michelle, is this right, where it's the temporary certificate of occupancy and or conditional certificate of occupancy, the verbiage is different between.
Chapter 4 and chapter 15. Yeah. So then chapter 4, it does state conditional occupancy. But then in chapter 15, it says temporary certificates of occupancy.
So I guess the question is, they're one and the same, but they're using different terminology.
Yeah, just to clarify, reiterate what was the issue? You can.
So the first issue was when the process got brought up to me is because. If there's something we need to look at to figure out how we can make sure these people that are seeking these are, I guess, following the guidelines, and I don't know if there's something, I think it's more of a building commissioner thing, I don't think it's, but it wanted to be looked at. So that's how we got it brought on our attention. I don't know how much there is gonna be for us to do. And if the only thing that we find is the difference between temporary certificate of occupancy and conditional certificate of occupancy, I think this could be grouped with something much larger in the future if we don't find anything else. To potentially, I don't, going through the whole process of a public hearing just to change one word. It's not a glaring issue. It's not like we have people lined up for temporary certificate of occupancy or conditional, whatever you want to call it. I don't think it's gonna be an issue anyways until we really get into fall. Because most of it's gonna be for concrete that can't get done because of the weather, and for lawns and sod that you just can't obtain because of the time of year. So it's not necessarily a thing right now in my opinion.
Wasn't this issued too because it wasn't a developer? It was himself doing it.
I mean, that was this specific situation, but looking at it as a whole. I think it's just one of those things. I think that I think we basically just need to all kind of look at it and see. Hey, at next meeting, if you guys have anything to go like, hey, I don't like how this is said or something like that, maybe there's more than just the difference between conditional and temporary. But if not, I mean, I think that's kind of the only thing that's really been found. And if that's it, I would suggest. When we do another topic, that maybe we group that into a change.
I think a lot of it, and you're right, that we didn't have a building commissioner. And the building commissioner to me should be keeping tabs of the building permits he has out. And when they're coming up to say 30 days from when the building permit, he needs to go out and see how close they are to being ready for their certificate of occupancy.
Right.
Is it, and probably from one to the other, that we didn't realize that his building permit was due to, what is it, 18 months, 12 months?
Well, it's 18 months on a new build.
Yeah,
And I think we had another homeowner that built their house and didn't get a certificate of occupancy and just moved in. Which I guess my other part, like, maybe that brings up another thing where maybe we need to look and make sure that there is a violation in town code, something that could be cited for failure to actually obtain that. I don't know if there is or not, but I mean, that's something I can look into before the next meeting and see if there's actually something that.
it's just,
I mean, town code doesn't mean much if there's nothing you can do about it. So, yeah, I mean, if there's no penalty established, there's nothing we can do. So I think maybe that might be something I'll try and find, see if it's in there.
I think they're different though, like. This is a conditional occupancy can be issued up to 180 days. Well, for here it says 60 days on this temporary one. Sounds like the temporary one is only in the event that you apply for on the 1539 section.
Right.
It explains everything there, and then it just says if after you submit, then the building commissioner determines that you didn't fully meet it, then they'll give you a temporary certificate, and that says 60 days. So I think they are different. Looking at the previous, maybe once.
Right. I just have never known of any other way to.
I think we did do the temporary. Basically, we added that on for the lawn and for the driveways. That they give up time that you could, when you couldn't do them in the winter time.
Right.
That the asphalt plants or the concrete plants were shut down. Or the lawn. You can't put a lawn in the middle of December.
But I think what Aaron's getting at is that when you look at it under chapter 15, the temporary certificate of occupancy says that it cannot be issued. In a period not to exceed 60 days. But then in under chapter 4, you start looking at no conditional occupancy permit. Issued pursuant to this section shall be issued for a period of more than 180 days. So if in fact they are two different things, I guess my question. I think that's what we have to look at and figure out, like, I mean, maybe there's nothing wrong with the town code, maybe it's just that we're not realizing there's two things. And what could a temporary certificate of occupancy be issued for? Like, how is that used? Whereas I think the conditional on the
Is.
180 days, that's the one for the sod and or potentially driveways.
Right.
On F, on whatever it is, page 11, chapter 4. But, yeah, I mean, because the dates, they obviously conflict, because one says it can't do more than 60, and the other one says it can't do more than 180.
But the chapter 4 and 15 have different. I guess one of them you can start with one with the model, I mean, I don't know what that.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at the verbiage, the temporary seems to be geared more towards modifications as opposed to conditional. It has to do with letters of credit or bond for uncompleted work as opposed to modifications.
Maybe everything is fine, but. I think it's just something to look at to see if we can get a better understanding of it, because I. Don't know on the building permit if there's actually, or in the process, if there's a difference. We'll probably have to,
I've never seen temporary.
we can send an email to the building department and see if they can. Try and clue us in, and then we can forward any information we come up with. And then maybe we'll have a better understanding at the next meeting. And again, there may be no issues with this, this is just something that was like, hey, this was different. When we started looking at the process and trying to figure out if there was anything that the board needed to do. Or to address in reference to this, because it might be that there's nothing we can do, or maybe we just have a suggestion that. Somebody keeps a list somewhere of these to figure it out. I don't think. We don't want to be in a position where we're. Approving, reviewing any temporary or conditional certificate of occupancies, that's as far as I'm concerned, that's a building commissioner thing. But if there's something we can do to help them, then. Establishing rules or town code would be great. But unless anybody else has anything to ask. Cool.
No, I got one question.
Yeah.
Have you seen much headway being done? I've drove by there a couple of times on that house, we give them the. Temporary. Extension.
So it is my understanding. That he was, that he did sell it. That's my understanding. I don't know if a new building permit has been issued, but we can follow up on that as well, because it was sold to a contractor from my understanding. Because I mean, it doesn't have a certificate of occupancy, I don't think you could obtain a mortgage on it right now. But I was told it was sold, so with that. My assumption is that we can't tell a new contractor that they can't obtain a building permit for a property they just bought.
Oh, I'm not up to that, but I don't think they need to get a full building permit. Where it's like you're building a whole brand new house and it's or it's 18 months.
Well, I don't think they're building a new house at this point. I think to me, they're finishing a project, so I think it would be a 12-month permit anyways. I don't think it'd be a new build because. I think you'd have to go through all the, I don't think they'd want to skip and throw away all the inspections that have already been done. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
But I've gone by there and I've seen,
it was, we all kind of talked about it and it just came up right before the meeting with that. Kind of, yeah, so. No more for that, so I'd be happy if it was done by July, but who knows. Any other business? I would entertain a motion.
Look to adjourn.
Motion and second. Discussion. Roll call, Michelle.
Travis Belknap,
Yes.
Nicole Migalorni,
Yes.
Aaron Addick,
Yes.
Bernie Paprad, Jeremy McCart.
Yeah.